Jesus has sent, it was Jesus who said, go to the other side. Go to the other side, which means even when Jesus sends you an errand, you can meet what? You can meet a storm. Go to the other side. Jesus wanted to be alone. Jesus wanted to go to the mountainside to pray. So he said, look, gentlemen, go to the other side. I'll meet you the following day. Or just before dawn, Jesus saw afar, 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers afar. He saw the disciples were battling. They were struggling as their boat was buffeted by waves. And the disciples were straining at the oars of the boat. So, he decided that he was going to help them. And he decided to walk on water. By the time he got to them, 4 kilometers away or 5 kilometers away, the disciples were already consumed, overwhelmed by fear, such that when they saw Jesus, rather than saying, thank God, he has come, they become even what? They became even more terrified. They were even more terrified, thinking that what they were seeing was who? Was a ghost and not Jesus Christ. Jesus, of course, assuaged their fear. And when he climbed into the boat, we were told that the wind died down immediately. And in one of the narratives, it says, immediately the ship, the boat, went quickly to the shore. Let's look at that in Matthew 14, 26, 27, and Mark 6, 51. Yes.
When the disciples saw him walking
they
on the
were so afraid that they couldn't even see clearly any longer. Yes.
They were terrified.
They were terrified. Terrified means serious and serious fear. They were now terrified. They were more afraid. Yes.
It's a ghost.
It's a ghost.
They said.
They said.
And cried out in fear.
And cried in fear.
But Jesus immediately said to them,
he assuaged their fear.
Take courage.
Take courage.
It is I.
It is I.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Let's look at Mark 6, 51.
Then he climbed into the boat.
Then he now climbed into their boat
with them.
And
the wind died down.
And what happened? The wind died immediately.
They were completely amazed.
We must ask a question. We need to ask a question at this time. Why did the disciples not recognize Jesus? Why? The answer is that they were not looking for or expecting Jesus. Had they been waiting by faith, they would have recognized Jesus instantly. Instead, they jumped to the false conclusion that his appearance was that of a ghost. What's the point here? What's the point I'm trying to make? The point I'm trying to make is that fear and faith cannot live in the same heart. I'll repeat that. If you are afraid, you cannot have faith. They cannot live in the same heart. Because fear frequently blinds the eyes, our spiritual eyes, to the reality of the presence of God. That's why most of them cannot be in the same heart. And if you look at this second story a little carefully, there's an interesting little addition in the account that Matthew gave, which is not present in the account of Mark and John. What's that little addition? It concerns Peter. After they now recognize it was Jesus, you know Peter, he acts before he thinks. He said, Master, if you can walk on water, let me also do what? Let me walk on water. Why didn't he stay in his boat? Jesus Christ was about to enter there. He said, I want to also walk on water. And Jesus granted his request. But after he made a few steps, he saw that it's not what? It's not easy. He was sinking. He was now more afraid He was already regretting. Why did I even say I want to do this? Why shouldn't I have stayed in the boat? And then he cried out to Jesus and said, Jesus, save me from drowning. Let's look at that little addition. Matthew 14, 20 to 30. Yes?
Lord, if it is you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water.
Why didn't he stay in this boat? Why didn't he stay in his lane? Let me come and meet you. Let me walk also. I can walk also. Yes?
Come, he said. Then
Jesus
Peter
said,
got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and he came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid.
He then focused on the problem. When he again saw the wind, he focused on the problem again. He took his eyes off Jesus. He focused on the problem. And what happened?
He was afraid.
He began to sing.
And beginning to sing.
And he said,
he cried out, Lord, save me.
When you look at this second story, just like the first story, you will find the element of fear. The disciples together were afraid. Peter, when he was sinking, was afraid, fear. Peter was fearful after he made those first few steps walking on water. And if you notice in this example, just like in the first one, Jesus calmed the frayed nerves of the disciples by telling them not to be afraid. In other words, the presence of Jesus made all the difference. The presence of Jesus made the disciples to ride out the storm. Similarly, when Peter's faith was wobbling and was beginning to sink, it was the helping hands. We are told Jesus Christ stretched out his hands and lifted him up that prevented Peter from sinking. The lesson again for us here, and I want to be very, very careful, to listen to this very carefully. That's the lesson, the application rather, for us, is that Jesus knows about all our struggles when we face storms of life. He was on land. It was the darkest part of the day, yet he could see the disciples as they were struggling. Jesus knows all about your struggles.